Nice to see you again on my channel. Let's dive into the new story and try to resolve it together in the comments below after watching this video. Get comfortable and let's begin. First story for beginning. I struggled to find the right person. My first girlfriend cheated on me with my cousin, and another girlfriend cheated on me with my best friend. I walked in on another girl cheating on me with her friend. Then I met my wife at the age of 26. She was much younger, which I thought was a good thing because the older girls my age were the leftovers that no one wanted. The good ones tend to get taken when they are young. When I met my wife, I was very taken aback. She was quite a bit taller than I am and lived in the ghetto. She had been a foster child and had been sexually abused. Contrary to my logical thoughts, I was drawn to her in a strong way. The more I tried to get away from her, the more I was drawn to her. I was very attracted to her. She was a quiet homebody, which is what I wanted. I married her a year and a half later, and we had 3 kids. I taught her to drive, or she probably never would have learned. I taught her to shop and take care of herself. I struggled to give my heart totally to her because I had been cheated on so many times. I struggled to trust people in general. I had plans to better myself in life, but my wife disagreed with every plan I ever had and fought me. She refused to cooperate and wanted to take charge of everything. She sabotaged everything I tried to do to better our lives. I started my own business, but she would complain that I wasn't working enough even though I was making good money. She wanted me to go work for someone else and make half as much so that I could work 40 hours a week. This didn't make sense to me, and we fought about it continually. I gave her my heart and tried my best to be a good husband and make her happy. I told her she was beautiful all the time, spent a lot of time with her, and pleased her well in the bedroom. After we had been married for about 10 years, she began to say things that I thought I would never hear her say. I want a divorce. I am not happy. One day, I realized that I was going to lose her if something didn't change. I caved into her and began looking for a job to work for someone else. Every job I got was a disaster, and even the ones before I had met her were a disaster. Always a controversy, and always I was the center of it from the moment of being hired with no way to fix it. She got worse about the issue of me working for someone else. I knew I was in trouble and desperately looked for a job, but couldn't find one. "You aren't trying hard enough," she would say, or she would say, "Don't worry about it," and I would think she meant "don't worry about it." Her mother died, and she was heartbroken but wouldn't let me comfort her. 3 weeks later, I had a horrible reaction to an antibiotic that messed up my mind and body. I couldn't think, remember things, was confused, had insomnia, and had anxiety to the point of suicide. She met a man on that same day. He began sending her messages on Facebook and trying to get with her. One day, she went over to his house, and he gave her a drink. He played the guitar and sang for her. Then as she was leaving, he kissed her, and she got upset about it. Then she began seeing him and having sex with him as I was completely messed up. She slept with him for 6 months. She lied to me. She had a threesome with him, then on Sundays, she would go to church and teach Sunday school and pretend to be a good Christian. After her affair ended with him, she began looking for another affair. She went on Craigslist and found men and messed around with them. Made out with them, touched them. Went to a baseball game with a complete stranger. Then she found another man to have an affair with. She would meet him in the park and have sex with him and let him come inside her. He gave her herpes. She gave it to me. One day I was on the computer after she left her windows open and found the emails between her and many different men talking about sex, etc. When I confronted her, she tried to deny it, then admitted it. I was completely blindsided. I never expected this from her. She had been a really good mother and wife. We had a phenomenal sex life. She even punched me in the stomach a few times when I tried to stop her from leaving. She put me through hell and now wants me to love her the way I used to. I can't. I struggle to forgive her. I struggle to be happy anymore. All I think about is how she betrayed me and my love. I did finally give her my whole heart only to find that she was shitting on mine. Everyone loves her and thinks she's this wonderful person. I used to too. Now I hate her. I have tried to keep this secret from everyone I know. I have only told those who are not close to us. I can never be the same. I feel like my hopes and dreams have been destroyed. We have 3 kids. To leave her is to lose them. They are my life. To leave her is to lose everything. I don't think I could survive if I left, and I am completely miserable being with her. She has changed so much since I caught her. She runs around now like a bat out of hell and won't ever relax from the moment we get up until about 9 or 10 at night. Then she is so crabby, she yells and pushes me away and is a miserable bitch all of the time. I can't believe she is the same person she was 4 years ago when all of this began. I told one of her lover's fiancés, now spouse, about it. She married the bastard anyway. My wife utterly refuses to tell me the name of the other guy. Sometimes I just wish she would have a heart attack and die for what she did to me and our family, and because she is such a miserable bitch now. I feel like it can never be good again, and like my life is ruined. I was so happy before, even with all of our problems. Now, I am completely miserable. The second story. Sorry, I need to vent. I suspect my wife is cheating on me with my best friend. I had written this story on another site as well. Most commenters believe there is something going on and that I'm not crazy. Years ago, my best friend went on a few dates with a really attractive girl. He said he was going to bang the hell out of her because he was extremely attracted to her. He introduced me to her. After 2 to 3 weeks, she broke it off with him. I honestly don't know how far it got between them in those weeks, but I know my best friend is a hound. She and I bumped into each other a lot on the singles scene, and we started hanging out a lot together. I ended up hooking up with her soon after, and I eventually married her. We are in our late 20s and have been married for 3 years now with no kids. We don't get to spend much time together during the weekdays. She works 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and I work 3 p.m. midnight. My best friend is still a bachelor, single, and available. He works a similar schedule to my wife's. He took it pretty well when my wife and I first hooked up. He was my best man at my wedding. Now, here's the thing that bothers me. They are way too touchy and friendly with each other. My wife and best friend are always play fighting, throwing soft punches at each other's bodies, and having tickle fights. He once sat on top of my wife and tickled her until she cried mercy. Sometimes he walks past my wife and tickles her ribs for no reason, and she does the same to him. I don't enjoy watching another guy touch my wife, and he does it pretty often. There was this time when a bunch of us friends were at the beach. My wife didn't want to go in the water because it was kind of cold, so she was tanning on the sand. For some reason, my best friend wanted her in the water with him. He picked up my wife, who was in her bikini, and threw her into the water. I did not enjoy seeing his hands on my wife's bare stomach and her on his shoulders. She then tried to dunk him under. She was on his back with her breasts pressed against him and her legs wrapped around him. At one point, he had my wife tight from behind and slammed her into the water. Yes, it did anger me seeing my wife 90% naked wrestling with my 90% naked best friend in the water. It felt like they messed around in the water forever, but I'm pretty sure it was closer to a minute or two. The whole time, I was in a bit of shock at what was going on. I didn't know how to react, and I didn't want to make a scene in front of my other friends. I'm not the jealous type, but the image is still stuck in my mind. My best friend texts her more than he texts me. I have read some of their messages, and it's borderline flirting. A while ago, we had a small get-together at my place. We were just chilling and enjoying a few drinks with some friends. I had a little too much, so I went to sleep around midnight while my wife hung out with my best friend and the few remaining friends. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to use the bathroom. My wife was not in bed yet. I went to the living room and noticed everybody had left except my wife and best friend. They were alone, sitting next to each other on the sofa. I know just sitting isn't cheating, but with so many seats and space available, I don't understand why they were next to each other. Their thighs were side by side up against each other. There was plenty of space left on that sofa. They were really close to each other. What could they be doing this late at night alone? It can't be that much to talk about. I suspected something weird was going on, but I ignored it. The next day, I noticed a small red mark that looked like a hickey on her shoulder. I asked how she got that, and she said she didn't know. There was another time while I was at work, and she went out with some gal pals of hers. One of these gal pals is a friend of mine who is more loyal to me. This female friend of mine told me my best friend supposedly randomly showed up there. I was told my wife and best friend flirted all night. They were caught seen dancing on the dance floor. According to my friend, at times, both of them disappeared from the group for a good 10 to 15 minutes. Neither of them smoke. I have thought maybe they were just both in the bathroom at the same time, but honestly, I doubt it. My female friend also suspects something between those two. When I asked my wife about her night out, she failed to mention that my best friend showed up. I have been secretly reading her text messages. I read these text messages, and later on, I look at them again, and they're all deleted. Why would there be reasons to delete their text conversations? I haven't given any clues that I suspect anything. I see texts asking her what she's doing tonight. He's trying to invite her out to hang out with him. I work nights on the weekdays, so it's hard to keep track of her. I remember coming home from work one night, and there were empty beer bottles in the recycle bin. My wife does not drink beer, and I know it wasn't me. My gut feeling tells me my best friend was over having a few drinks with my wife. I didn't ask her about it. I asked her how her day was, and she didn't mention anything about those beer bottles. For all I know, he's been coming over every weekday while I was at work. At any social gathering, those two are always attached at the hips. Strangers would probably assume they were together. With other single women around, he'd rather converse with my wife, and she'd rather talk to him over her gal pals. I was at work one Friday night, and my wife went out with some coworkers. She had a little too much to drink and was not able to drive, so she went through her phone, and from all the people she could have called, she called my best friend to pick her up. He lives on the opposite side of town. She had so many other people who lived closer to call, and she chose him. I've been just playing dumb and naive. I don't have any evidence to accuse her. I have asked her if there's anything going on between her and my best friend. She denies it, saying they are just good friends. Since then, things have been a little more awkward, and the texts have stopped between the two. I have had a friend drive by my place a few times while I'm at work to see if he sees my best friend's car. Nothing yet, but I do have a 2-car garage. It may be parked in there. She's gotten more cautious. She occasionally goes out Thursday or Friday nights. I'm no fool, I know my best friend shows up. There are so many other incidents I can name, but I'm going to stop. My sex life has declined ever since my wife has been spending more time with my best friend. I'm stuck on the second shift, and I can't get on the first due to seniority, length of employment there. I have no college education, so to find a job that pays close to $25 an hour is a blessing. I know to save my marriage, I need to quit my job, but I've been asking myself if my marriage is already over. Another question I've been asking myself is who would she choose, me or my best friend? Every time I see my best friend, it reminds me of what could be going on behind my back. There's this rift between me and my friend now. I have not brought it up with him yet, but I'm sure my wife has. Our friendship is a little torn due to a girl. Do you think there's something going on, or am I going crazy? The third story. So it all started back in the summer of 2016. My wife had just started a new job, leaving the EMS field for an 8-to-5 job so she could be home with our 2 boys more. We met in 2008, got married in 2010, and had 2 bright and handsome boys. Not too long after she started her new job, about 5 months in, her job site lost a coworker to a car accident. She took it hard because she had talked to the coworker that morning right before the accident. She called me at work and told me. Just like any loving husband would do, I told her I would be heading to pick her up. But she just told me no, she was going to stay at work and come home. That night she did not come home until 12 a.m., which was out of the ordinary for her. I asked her why she was late coming home. She told me she and her other coworkers had to help cook for the person's family gathering. So a couple of days passed, and the same routine continued, leaving early and coming back late. Every day I tried to ask if she was okay. I even told her I was there to comfort her and that she had someone there for her to cry on. But every day it was the same answer, she was okay. On the day of the funeral, she ran into one of her other coworkers and finally introduced me to him, saying that this was her chump. The guy was as old as us, and at first, he did not want to shake my hand or look me in the eyes. Then when she and he hugged, she started to cry on his shoulders. I found that very strange, and she never mentioned that she was going to all the gatherings with him until he had mentioned it when we first saw him, and he finally shook my hand. Later that day, I asked her what her relationship was with the guy I just met. She said he was just a friend who took it hard, and she needed to cheer him up along with her other coworkers. After that, I started noticing she was texting him and calling him more often at work and after work. She would say it was just work-related when I asked, and I kept on asking if there was something going on between them. Fast forward to Christmas of 2016, and I was told by my wife that she had to work late, and that everyone had to work late too, so I didn't question it. She didn't get home until 3 a.m. that morning. She slept until 11 a.m. By then I was up, had breakfast cooked, and the boys were fed. She said it was very tough at work last night. They had to do a lot of catching up. Life went on until New Year's Eve. She said she had to work late again and that she would be home late too. As usual, I stayed home and watched the kids, watched TV, and cartoons with them. The next day she was not home, and she didn't get home until the afternoon. She said she had to take a shower because she felt dirty from all the sweating, and that the AC had stopped working in their building. So as usual, I didn't say anything and let it be, but deep down, I knew she was with her male coworker that I had only met once. After that, our sex life died out completely. She would say she was tired at night. She started wearing G-strings that I had never seen to work. And then at the end of January, she called one night saying she had to work late. The kids were at their grandparents' house, so curiosity got the best of me. I went to her work to see if she wanted some dinner. No one was there, all the doors were locked, and even her car was not there. I called her cell, and it just went to voicemail every time I called it. So I gave up and went home. Then one day, a couple of months later, a good friend of mine stopped by to see me and asked how I was doing. He told me he had heard my wife was sleeping with a coworker from her job and that he needed to see if it was true. We talked for 2 hours. He left, and I was trying to get access to my cell phone accounts, but the password was changed. I had to call to have it reset. After it was reset, I logged in and found out my wife was texting her coworker every minute every day, and it was sexual at times. It got to a point where she even asked if he would stop texting her because his wife was home. She even sent him nude pictures of herself. Now it was all adding up. Every time the company had dinner or cookouts, he would avoid me every chance he got, and she would avoid looking at him or talking to him while I was there. So after 2 more days of playing like I didn't know what she was up to, I called her at work and told her I was in her neck of the woods and that if she would love to have lunch with me. She hesitated at first and said that she was supposed to go have lunch with her friend, but eventually said she would have lunch with me. At lunch, we talked about our work. Then I finally asked her about cheating with her man from work. She kept denying it until I told her I had seen everything she texted him, and that I was going to the head person to see what he thinks. She finally broke down and told me she was seeing him, that it started that night their coworker died, and that it was just supposed to be a one-time thing, but it continued, and that her working late was just a cover for them because he was married too, and they were doing it every time they got. I was so disgusted by what I heard and was so mad and hated her so much that I left and went back home. She tried to call, but I never wanted her calls. I just texted her telling her to stay at her mom's house for the next couple of weeks. After 2.5 months, I finally decided that my kids came first and that they needed their mother back home. I called her and told her that she could come home, but under one condition, that she could not talk, see, text, or have any form of communication with her man from work. And she said she would keep her promise and could not have anything to do with him. So my question is, did I do the right thing, or should I have just kicked her out and never let her come back? Guys, thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate that you have devoted your time to my work, specifically on this channel. If you subscribe to the channel, I will be happy. But if you decide to talk to me in the comments about this story, I will be even happier. Stay tuned for my next story on this channel.